So they say you can't keep people happy all the time. And wow, never have I heard a more accurate statement than that. So this is the second full moon in Capricorn. We had one on the 22nd of June. We've got one tomorrow, or kind of tonight, really. We've got one on the 21st of July. And it's a really big one. It's in a conjunction with Pluto, and there's loads going on with it. So let's just cut to the chase and get right on with it. So if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and I look at astrology using a tropical Western mindset. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and my whole purpose of doing this is to help people find greater space and freedom to be themselves. That's really why I'm doing this. So let's see what this month's full moon has got in store. So this is the second one, like I said, like I've shared, and it's at 29 degrees 09 in the sign of Capricorn. And if you see right down here, it's in a conjunction with Pluto. Pretty tight. It's like less than 2 degrees of orb here, so it's pretty intense. The previous full moon was at, as you can just see here, it was at 1 degree Capricorn. So this one is at 29 degrees Capricorn. And you'll see that last one, we were kind of pulled apart at the seams. I always think the full moons really give us a description of what's going on over the next week, the next 2 weeks, really, leading up until the new moon. And it also kind of sets a theme of what we're really striving to let go of, in the month ahead. And, for me, seeing this last full moon, it was in opposition to the sun and Venus and Mercury. I really think it was about realizing just how personalized things are for us, how we've made what's going on in the world really, really real, like everything is coming alive in our heads and in our hearts, and everything feels very, very real. What's coming up with this one, as far as I can see, is that we've got this chance to transform our stories. We've got this opportunity to work at a really, really deep level. I think this first full moon in Capricorn has stirred us up, really, really stirred us up. And if you think about it, back then we had the sun and Venus and Mercury all in the sign of Cancer, which is obviously stirring us up. In the sign of Cancer, we've really got our emotions really strongly felt. This time round, we've got Venus and Mercury in the sign of Leo. We might still be quite identified with what's going on, but we're not necessarily as vulnerable, as hurt. We might actually be trying to work out what things mean in terms of us being sovereign, or in terms of us living our life. So I don't see, even though it might appear that things look really, really personal, I actually think people are really wanting to just make sense of what's going on in the world right now. So this is a big one. Now, the other thing is the moon and the sun are at what's known as the aneretic degree, the 29th degree. And the 29th degree is one of these degrees that is known as being a little bit on the shocking side. Like the sun is at 29 degrees in the sign of Cancer. The moon is at 29 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. These signs aren't necessarily, and these planets in these signs aren't necessarily carrying on the usual Cancer theme and the usual Capricorn theme. Things are starting to break down. Our ideas are starting to break down. Now, what I like about the sign of Cancer is it's about the story, the history and the feelings and the emotions, and how we really personalize things. So I think at the 29th degree, at some level, we are kind of breaking down and away from the stories. We are allowing the possibility that maybe the stories aren't what is really keeping us there. And I always think Capricorn is about, the corporatocracy, but I also think it's about our status and our longevity in many respects. I think Capricorn is quite an aged sign in many respects. So, it feels like we are maybe changing our tune in terms of what feels like we have, like what aspects are giving us longevity right now. So I think, longevity in stories are still playing out, but they're playing out in a slightly different way, which could be quite interesting. Now, obviously, the moon in a conjunction with Pluto is super intense. Anyone, like if you're born with the moon in a conjunction with Pluto, no doubt you feel things absolutely very, very intensely. Any moon Pluto contact is pretty intense. But what I see this offering, because I think, every aspect is a gift. Every aspect that we are dealing with astrologically is gifting us something. It's not always taking things from us. It's giving us an opportunity to work on something. And Pluto here is absolutely about power issues. We are working on something very, very deep right now in terms of the stories we've identified with about power and who's got the power and who doesn't have the power. And, I often think that, we could absolutely live our lives in a very sort of externalized way. And I would say that recent events around the world, not just talking about America here, but all around the world, there are lots of different things going on at the same time right now. And it would be very easy to live your life and just say, look, this is happening out here, therefore I must act, because if I don't, then this is going to go wrong and this is going to go wrong. I actually often find that when things are going on in the outer world, it's actually our opportunity to look at what's going on for us inside, in our actual real lives, in our actual real communities right now, in a real context. I always think that what we notice about the outside, like what we're projecting into our outside view, is what's really going on for us. So I think whatever we are feeling right now, possibly with some shock, given that Pluto's involved, and that's pretty dramatic, sorry. We've got this idea to work with really, really strong emotions about power, really strong emotions about what constitutes evil, what constitutes death and dying, because obviously that's a massive theme for Pluto. Also, what constitutes the lengths we will go to have our own way is a really, really big theme with Pluto. It's a massive theme with Pluto. Like Pluto in our charts, I think, shows us the lengths we will go to validate the stories that we're playing out, because people with a very, very strong Pluto, like really strong Pluto, I find they either awaken to their stories and maybe realize that the stories are having power over them, or they'll spend their life validating and justifying why such and such is like this, and it's because of that, and it's real, it's made alive. Well, I think we've got an opportunity here to recognize that what we're noticing right now is something that's playing out in us. Pluto really is helping us to see things. If you think about it, the moon is essentially it's like what we've been told about the moon is that it's reflected light. So any of the light that you're actually seeing, or any of the emotions that you're feeling from the moon, they're not really there. It's what's reflected. It's you could look at the moon as a big cinema screen, or a big theater stage, or a big movie playing out in your head. It is based on projections. It's the projections of our psyche. And of course, if you're really super empathic, the chances are you'll also be picking up on everyone else's projection movie screens going on in their heads too. And so, we have got these massive projector screens of Pluto going on right now. And so, we might ask ourselves, what would I do right now to have my way? And is that scary? I've seen lots of different memes this week. And it's interesting because I try and find myself in the middle of things. I try and find myself. Sometimes I veer off this way. Sometimes I veer off this way. But I try not to have too much of an actual belief system, not because I believe that's the best way or the most morally superior way or anything like that. Mainly because I just want to feel good, hence why I do feel good astrology. I want to feel good. I want to feel good because I think when we feel good, we start to reflect out our own feeling good. I think, you know, when we feel good, it starts to spread and other people start to feel good. You know, that's what I'm about, I guess. So I try and stay in the middle of things because I think, you know, when I can see both sides or understand people, like when I find myself in the middle, I'm able to listen more fully for people, to understand where everyone's coming from, because I think when we understand each other, we have an ability to communicate with each other and reach each other. And the funny thing about right now, what I've observed is, you know, being kind of slightly neutral or slightly in the middle, slightly kind of not bothered so much about what's going on, that people on one side of a political argument, seeing me in the middle actually sees me as being completely on the other side, because, you know, anything to one side of them looks like it's the opposition. And I've noticed from the other side as well, when they've looked at me in the middle, they've just assumed, because I'm not necessarily agreeing with them, that I must therefore be completely on the other side. And that's really, I think, shows the whole nature of the projection screen that is going on right now. You know, we are, especially if we want to believe that people are absolutely against us, and if that's a story that's playing out in your consciousness right now, you may well find that everyone you're seeing right now, if they're not agreeing with you, they do look oppositional. They do look like they are completely, you know, like standing in your way. And, you know, what I would absolutely pose this question to you, and it might be too soon because, like I said, I've managed to piss off a few people this week without meaning to. But there are, I think some of us, and myself included, not necessarily with this, but with other things, where I've wanted to believe something about myself, like where my ego is desperate to hold on to a story from my past, to do, you know, with my childhood or something like that, where I've got a belief system that's really, really persistent. I have a listening, you know, I have a psychic listening, like my psyche is literally listening for evidence to back up why I'm hating on myself, or to back up how I can feel crappy in this moment rather than feeling good. So I really think that, you know, this full moon is fantastic if you're going to ask yourself some questions. And when you're feeling something, ask yourself something like, am I going to big lengths to hold on to this? You know, what lengths will I go to maintain my belief systems right now? What's at stake if I don't have these belief systems right now? Because that's the thing with Pluto. I think with Pluto, everything feels like life and death. You know, obviously he's the god of the underworld, and so everything to do with life and death comes up. You know, and there's this amazing card. You know, I often talk about Chuck Spezzano's the Psychology of Vision website, where he has like a 3-card draw. I find these really, really transformational, but he has one card, and I can't remember what it's called, but it has to do with like a death wish, not like wanting to die, but almost like a curiosity about death. You know, sometimes I think people say, oh, you know, I'm so tired right now, I would rather just go to sleep and not wake up. And I don't think people are actually wanting to do that. I just think they're exhausted. They don't know what else to feel, that it feels too painful to be themselves. And so I think at this time, our psyche, our unconscious mind, will do whatever it needs to do to help you feel okay, to help justify your views, you know, to help you, like, it is too much to consider something new. So I really think that this Pluto and moon, full moon, could make things really, really strong for you, you know, whereby you'll hold on to your belief systems, because it will feel like a matter of life or death, you know, about letting go of it, or even like questioning it or examining it. Like, have I always felt like this? What might have changed that I now feel like this? What would I do if somebody who held an opposite view to me used the same argument that I'm using right now? Like, what if I heard this from somebody like from you know, a different religion or a different political party? How would I feel if I heard that being parroted back at me. There are so many different things going on right now. And I absolutely recognize for a lot of people, this is the other theme that comes up with Pluto, and that's fear. We get really, really frightened at these times, frightened of the unknown, frightened for our survival. And we cannot think in terms of love. We cannot be fully switched on to love when we're in fear. Fear robs us of love. Literally, it stops us from being in a loving moment. Anytime you're feeling fear, it's jamming up your body. It's jamming up your instincts, so you cannot connect into love. So I really think this full moon in Pluto at its absolute core could absolutely show you where you're feeling things so strongly that you might think, oh, there's that really strong emotion. Hang on a second, there was something I was going to do. Oh, hang on. Maybe I'm going to ask myself a few questions. Maybe I'll sit down. Maybe I'll talk to this part of me that's frightened right now. Maybe I'll just sit quietly and listen to this part of me right now that is in fear. Maybe I'll just listen to myself. As if you're a grandmother or a loving mother or a loving father, listen to yourself as if you are holding your little you firmly on your lap and giving them your full attention. Because that, I think, is the real power of this full moon. I don't really think people want to be coming apart. I really don't think people do want to be coming apart. I think we're all really, really good people. And right now, I think this full moon could actually help us all come back together, to face what we fear and to recognize that fear is stopping us from connecting into love. So there we go. Now, this is also in a trine to Mars and Uranus. So I think we can have some very quick and stunning realizations, some really quick, stunning moments where all of a sudden something clicks, it downloads, and we feel absolutely motivated by these new thoughts or feelings. So I think, when we have these moments in time, like Mars is physical, so we could and I think that Uranus is absolutely a channeling planet. I think we can channel information and feel it in our bodies. I think we can make a physical change in our bodies based on what we know, like that instinct. It's huge. Now, so the full moon is in a trine to Uranus and Mars. Now the sun is in a sextile to Uranus and Mars. So as well, we can be a lot more open and we can be a lot more motivated, a lot more positive, a lot more, I don't want to say cheery necessarily, but we can absolutely allow ourselves to go down a particular road. If you're really fearful, and your psyche is really closed down to finding out new things or to share things or to learn something about someone, you might find, one part of you doesn't want to be near them. But I actually think, the sun in a sextile to Mars is actually quite positive, quite proactive. And with Uranus as well, they're kind of open. They're open to a new experience. So, I think we can transform our fears here and be open to a new positive solution. And we don't even have to know what that new positive solution is. We really don't. But just holding on to that feeling of an opening, I think, is really important. It creates possibility. So, we've got this opportunity to notice fear, observe fear, and then choose love. And at the same time, to be open to something positive occurring, something that could almost appear miraculous, something that could change us internally, that could surprise and delight us. And could set us up for something really quite exciting. Now, one of the things that I also notice is we've got Chiron right slap bang in a T-square with both of these. So even though, there's this positivity, this potential for an opening, this potential for some quick change and relief, and also this opportunity to channel new information, have a sense of real certainty and knowing that we can really feel, we've still got to really watch the fears as they present, the vulnerability as, when we focus on our fears, vulnerability seems to show up. And Chiron, who is known as the wounded healer, but I think is also and I was had a lovely conversation with astrologer Linda Hill, who wrote her book, the Sabian Oracle, 360 degrees of wisdom. So I recorded with her last week, and that's already up. I had a lovely conversation with her yesterday, and I will release something. We were talking about Chiron yesterday, and she was saying, yes, he's the wounded healer, and yet he's not just about wounds. He is about moving through things. He's about discovering things, like mastering things, and I tend to agree with that. So, we've got this opportunity to master our fears, master our vulnerabilities, to face them and be open to something really miraculous happening. Now, on the 23rd, the sun will be in an exact opposition to Pluto. And again, that's really challenging. That's giving us another opportunity to really face our fears. The sun represents our ego or our personality, and Pluto, our fears. It's almost like you're standing in the mirror looking at it. So the more you're doing around the time of this full moon, every time you feel uncomfortable, the more you can notice it, observe it, thank it. Do you know what? I was having a conversation with my husband, Carl, earlier, and just talking about the Ho'oponopono prayer, but actually wanting to get our Ho'oponopono on. So we were talking about Ho'oponoponoing our fears. That's what I'm probably going to be doing tonight, is looking at what has come up in the last few days, where I felt uncomfortable, where I felt dissonance in myself, where I felt dis-ease. And I'm going to sit down. I'm going to talk to myself. I'm going to give myself a right old talking to. Actually, not a talking to, a listening to. I'm going to listen to that part of me that feels that discomfort, and use the Ho'oponopono prayer, the Ho'oponopono method, for finding that forgiveness, for finding that relief, for finding that ultimate gratitude, and for finding that release. And if you want to know what it is, I'm just going to pause this so that I can share it with you, because I always get it in the wrong order, and that would be a real shame. So 1 second. Whew, and just like that, there it is. So the Ho'oponopono prayer or mantra: I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Really, really powerful technique. Obviously, I'm not doing it justice here, just mentioning the 4 steps of the process. There's lots of fantastic websites that you can go to learn more about it, or videos that you can see on YouTube. But, I think I'm going to sit with myself, find out what it is that I've been laboring over, what I've been worried about, what I felt dis-ease about, and talk to the younger part of me and say, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. So it's about creating the conditions for a release, to notice that you don't have to hold on to everything, that you can actually let some things go. And maybe you can't let it all go in one go, but maybe just by focusing through using meditative techniques or whatever works for you, going for a walk, whatever. We all have our own ways of dealing with things, but maybe you can just feel a bit better in each moment. So I really think this is a very, very powerful full moon for that very reason. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to this channel, because you absolutely make a difference. Not just you who subscribe, but if you comment, if you send me nice little messages, any kind of encouragement I get, if you share, if you like my videos, it all makes a difference. It all helps me feel really motivated and inspired to create more. So I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being part of the Feel Good Astrology community. I love you. Right, let's have a look at some of the asteroids. Now, this is what I do with my new moons and full moons each month, is I have a look at the planets, but then I look at the asteroids, or a few asteroids, or trans-Neptunian objects, or centaurs, or whatever is in a really deep place that I think has some meaning. Now, one website that I find quite useful is serenu.com. If you go www.serennu.com, serenu.com, and you can put in any time, place, and date of birth, and click search and it will bring up to 1,000 different asteroids and their positions on a list, not in a chart, because that would be impossible to read. But for instance, if you wanted to know if there was an asteroid connected to your moon or an asteroid connected to your sun, you could put in your date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, and then look in the table that comes up, and it will tell you which asteroids are where. For instance, it could be quite useful to know if there's an asteroid crossing your ascendant at the time of your birth. Really, really helpful things. So at the time of this exact full moon, which is happening at 11:17 a.m. UK time tomorrow on the 21st of July, we have got asteroid Cassandra. And this is her asteroid number. It's 114, and you can add her into a chart if you want to. If you go to www.astro.com. These charts, I use astro.com to create them because I think they're really easy to read, and I use astro.com. So if you wanted to copy along, if you wanted to do your own chart, put in some asteroids, you'll recognize how it looks. It's so simple, and it's free to use. So anyway, Cassandra is right down here. She's right slap bang on the moon. Now, Cassandra has come up earlier this year, actually. So Cassandra in mythology is about having prophetic abilities, so she could see what was about to happen. And I think she was cursed by a god. I can't remember which one. But they cursed her, maybe because she thought she was so good and so prophetic. She thought she was the best or something like that. I think that's how it usually works with these kind of Greek and Roman gods. They get really fed up, if somebody seems to usurp them or talk about having more power. But anyway, Cassandra could see things, and she had difficulty, so she was cursed in her ability to see things, and that was that she could see them but nobody would believe her. So she was forced to live a life of seeing things, seeing actually how things were. Like, she predicted the Trojan horse problems. Nobody listened. And then she actually had quite a gruesome thing happen. I won't go into it now, but she got to watch exactly what she saw play out because nobody would listen to her. And can you imagine the horror of knowing what's going on? Not necessarily saying I told you so, but absolutely really wanting to help people avoid something, but not. And I think this is a theme that's going on right now. And, I've seen people from all different walks of life really seeing things in their mind's eye and knowing it to be true for them, and getting really upset that people can't see everything their own way. So I think that's a very, very strong, asteroid playing out right now. And of course, Cassandra is also next to Pluto. So it really does feel like life and death. And of course, she's in a conjunction with the moon. So it feels so emotional. Aron is a Celtic underworld lord who has gifts of articulation, but is also very boastful, arrogant, quick, and obsessed. Interestingly, Aron is in a conjunction with the moon. So it really wouldn't surprise me if people are making predictions about particular leaders right now that are appearing or who we believe to be boastful, arrogant, quick, and obsessed. People that are really good at articulating what they want. In fact, you might also find that if you are using your great skills of articulation, especially if you're feeling a bit arrogant because you really feel like you do know it, you can see what's about to happen because of Cassandra. It's that kind of energy that is really kind of added into this full moon in Capricorn energy. And then we've got two. I actually had three, but I'm actually just going to talk about two. And these are energies are in a square to this full moon. So they are almost adding to levels of frustration. It's really kind of showing the futility of what's going on for people. So we've got Sisyphus, and in mythology, Sisyphus was cursed to be punished for eternity. And so he had an uphill struggle. Again, this is his number 1866. His uphill struggle, his punishment, his unending task, that thing that he had to do, like from right now to the rest of eternity, is to push a massive big rock uphill until it gets to the top, and he thinks he's going to get some relief. and then he has to just go and do it again and again and again. So it really is an uphill struggle. And so what I'm really seeing here is you can see the truth. You really feel like you can see the truth, maybe come across a bit boastful, arrogant, quick, obsessed. And it just feels like it's an uphill struggle. The frustration of seeing it, nobody believes you, and it just feels like a massive cross to bear. And it just feels so very hard. Now, interestingly, we've also got Haumea, the creation goddess of Hawaii. It's all about natural creation, fertility, connection to source, natural good, natural truth, natural goodness. So it almost feels like even when you're doing something really good, even when you're absolutely trying your best, you really are wanting to help. And it's like, what's that phrase? A prophet is never known in their own land. You know, the idea that, and that's interesting because obviously Cassandra has prophetic abilities, that feeling that, you know, those closest to you are probably unlikely to be moved by you, unlikely to just fall in line because you say, look, I've seen this, you know, because right now we're all having this sense of prophetic ability. That's the thing. That's the whole point with this energy. Everyone is feeling like they know what is actually happening. But actually, none of us actually really know, hand on heart. All we can know is what is going on inside us. But it doesn't matter, you know, like what I really get here with Haumea, like the idea that our absolute good, the good we want to create in the world, the good reaction, the good feeling, the just helping people feel like they're great in their natural bodies. And it just feels like an uphill struggle. So, you know, here's a suggestion here. Take the night off, take a few days off, look after you, you know, really look after you, because Haumea at the time of this full moon is in a trine with the midheaven, begging to feel good in her body. You know, also Sisyphus and Haumea are also in a T square to the sun, obviously, because they're in a square to Pluto, Cassandra, the moon, and Aaron. And you know, it's also in an opposition to Chiron. So it's forming a grand square with these particular asteroids. It just takes me right the way back to the start of this video when I said, you know, sometimes no good deed goes unpunished. You can't please all the people all the time. So my absolute advice, you know, at the time of this full moon is to please yourself. Absolutely look after yourself, please yourself, listen to your inner child. You know, maybe that is all we can actually do. Maybe that's really where our truest power is to tap into that smaller part of us, that more vulnerable part of us, that side of us that has felt a lot of vulnerability and a lot of upset, maybe betrayal, rejection, all sorts of different real core feelings, and spend some time with you. Truly. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not saying do it because I'm doing it, but do whatever you can to make yourself feel as good and as well attended to, well cared for as you can right now. What we need right now, I think, is to be refreshed and to honor ourselves somehow, to really recognize just how hard you do try, to really recognize how good you want to be or how good you are, your intrinsic, natural beauty, your, you know, I mean, I don't want to go all God squad on everyone because I don't really feel like that myself necessarily, but like your natural goodness, you know, are we all made of stars? You know, are we a child of God? Are we an innocent being? You know, I don't know how you feel about yourself right now, but if you could possibly see the beauty that is you, I think that's a really good start. So there you go. That's what I'm doing around the time of the full moon, and wishing you lots and lots of love, lots of hugs, lots of recognition. I really hope you see yourself and see how wonderful you are. And if I can be of any help, then just please do get in touch. I'm sure we'll catch up at some point. So anyway, lots of love. Take care and speak soon. Bye for now.